On today's show, what are the biggest questions around the Mavs rivals? The Mavs have questions, but the rivals may have even more. We'll talk about all that and more today. It's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Amazing.
Your team every day.
And welcome. You are Locked On to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. Best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform. Leave a 5-star review, like the video on YouTube, and comment anything below. Comment one question you have about a Western Conference rival to the Dallas Mavericks. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And joining me from the great Slightly Biased YouTube channel, the NFL fantasy extraordinaire. What you got for me, Slightly Biased?
I did go 4-0 in fantasy this week, believe it or not.
Wow, 4-0, like 4 different teams?
Yeah. Pretty rare. I'm pretty terrible, so feeling pretty good about myself usually.
It's pretty much a crapshoot, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. People like to think
know.
it's not, but it is.
Yeah, it's like, I'm so skilled at this. Like, okay, win every year thing.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Go listen to Locked On Fantasy Basketball, one of the best fantasy basketball shows if you're interested in fantasy at all. We also have Locked On Fantasy Football, Locked On Dynasty Football, all kinds of different ones as well. If you're actually into that stuff, they'll actually help you win. Today, we're getting into some of the biggest questions we have for Western Conference rivals, contenders, however you want to put this. We're going to talk about the Timberwolves. I've got questions about them, questions about the Nuggets. We each picked a wild card team, and we didn't tell each other who it is. I'm curious who you pick for that. But let's start here with the Oklahoma City Thunder. That team, it seems to be the one that is the number one, not rival, but like the contender in the West right now because of how they improved their team over the offseason. My first question about the Thunder and how it relates to the Mavericks is the Thunder in the playoffs seemed to not have one more offensive guy. It's like it seemed like they were missing that guy, especially when Giddey was rendered kind of useless to them. They didn't want to play him, and so they held him out. And they're like, all right, it feels like they needed one more guy. Jalen Williams didn't have his best, offensive series. He didn't have a good offensive series at all. So him and Kyrie kind of canceled each other out. And then all of a sudden it was SGA versus Luka, and Luka won that one out. And so in the way that he could create offense in a way that SGA couldn't. So my question to them is, where does their extra offensive creation come from with Josh Giddey gone?
Yeah, I guess the idea would be J-Dub takes that leap forward, or Case and Wallace takes a step forward. Chet, becomes a little bit better. So I think that's their hopes and dreams, which I could see happening, especially like J-Dub.
I can see too. I think that with Giddey though, he was one of the guys that pushed them in transition.
Yeah,
he was out in transition 23% of the time. It's 81st percentile in the NBA, and so that he was a guy really that pushed their transition. Transition was 20% of their offense last season, and that's I think another reason why they kind of struggled in the playoffs. Is that goes down, and all of a sudden now, where do you replace that? It wasn't the best teams that were tops in transition offense last year. It was the Raptors, the Thunder, the Wizards, the Pacers, the Kings, Spurs, and Rockets were the top 7, and most of their offense was in transition. And so I think that's an area where they're going to struggle, I think, and to find somebody, because Alex Caruso, Isaiah Hartenstein, adding those guys, great, but where is their offense going to come from? You mentioned Jalen Williams. He actually spent 36% of his possessions in pick and roll last year, which I was actually kind of surprised. Like, he ran a bunch of pick and rolls for them last season. So it's him. And what did they do with Chet? Chet was just a finisher last season. He really didn't do a lot of creation at all. And then you mentioned Case and Wallace. What percentage of the time do you think Case and Wallace spent in pick and roll as a ball handler?
Oh, I would assume very little.
10% for like a guard, like a point guard. Like, I thought I was very, very surprised. So, but I think it's got to be one of those two, Chet or Kaysen, right?
Yeah. See, I want to say, because I know this is obviously a Mavericks podcast, so I'd venture to guess most people didn't watch a lot of Thunder games outside of I don't know if you just heard that ESPN update. Outside of
you went 5-0 now. You've won another fantasy league.
The amount of notifications that get sent out is absurd. But J-Dub was like a very big playmaking leap forward in the regular season last year, and was like a legitimately good playmaker, especially for a forward. and so or a wing. So that's not the J-Dub we saw in the playoffs.
No.
So I think for them, it's more so, is J-Dub ready in the playoffs? That'd be a big question. And like you said, the Giddey thing, I mean, look, he was unplayable. He became unplayable in the playoffs, but he played 80 games, 25 game, and the guys that they replaced him with don't do what he did. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the 80 game thing ties into my biggest question for them.
Go for it.
Which is, I mean, they're starting 5. Each of them played over 70 games last year, which is just absurd health. Like they were
crazy
healthy last year. We saw that with the Kings 2 years ago, where you just looked at the Kings the season they were the 3 seed, and it was like just the entire Western Conference died, and the Kings just faced 0 injuries, and they just sort of survived. The Thunder are obviously much better than the Kings, but Shea's 75 games. That's not really been his career up until this point. It was 75 games last year, 68 the year before, 56, 35. Now, granted, those 2 seasons I'm willing to toss out because they were tanking and obviously shut him down at the end of the season. But Chet played 82 games. Like, just think about that.
Wild.
That's crazy. Played in every single game after missing an entire year. So I'm just interested to see if they're as healthy as they were last year.
That's definitely a huge one for them. They, one of the things for the MVP last season was that SGA played with one lineup more than almost anybody else in the NBA. And Luka played with all these different lineups and all these different people and all that. And so now how do they respond to that? They got deeper, which is kind of the tough part if you're a Mavs fan. Like, oh, they got healthy, so they'll definitely go down. Well, I don't know. They got deeper and better, so I don't know.
Oh yeah, they had an incredible. I mean, there's not a lot of questions with this roster. Like, that's just the truth. They're very good. They're very balanced. I mean,
yeah. I asked Locked On Thunder host Rylan Stiles what was his biggest question for the Thunder going into the season. He said, 1, how do they truly want to use Hartenstein? He said OKC locals believe that he's going to come off the bench, and the national audience is probably going to be stunned that he's not going to be starting because he got $30 million a year. And so that's definitely a big question, is how do they use him, and how does he pan out? And then the second one he had was, are Jalen Williams and Chet 16-game players? If the answer is no, then this is all over. What was his answer? So coming into that a little quick, I think. But I think it is something about Jalen and Chet, and what else can they add? Like, can they take another step forward? And Chet, you absolutely expect them to.
I mean, that's actually a great question, because if those two aren't 16-game players, then yeah, I mean their championship window does not exist. Like, it just, that you'd be really banking on Shea having an ultimate carry job. But those are those guys' first playoff series. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's Chet is going into year 2 fully healthy, and J-Dub is I'm a big J-Dub guy. I can't see it not panning out for him.
He was great last year until he met the Mavs, and then it was him and Kyrie just canceled each other out in that playoff series.
Yeah, they really did.
All right, let's do. I'm going to do my wild card team right here, because I think we'll have some talk from the other ones. My wild card team is the Suns. I picked the Suns as another one. My question is, are they just a regular season team? Sub question: can this team defend? Can this team defend at all? Because they were actually a decent defense last year. They were 12th in the NBA in defense. But now you add Tyus Jones, you add Mason Plumlee to this team to play a little bit more. And Nurkic is getting older. Kevin Durant's getting older. Beal's getting, they're all getting there. They're going to play those guys more, I think. And they were below average on synergy defending pick and roll ball handlers. Tyus Jones, have you looked at Tyus Jones' advanced defensive statistics?
They're terrible.
They're very bad. The Wizards were 6 points per 100 possessions worse defensively when he was on the court last season. Is that possible for the Wizards to be worse defensively? Now they're going from DeLon Wright to him, so you're like, okay, that kind of makes a little sense.
Well, I also would say, he started every single game for them last year. All right, never mind.
Yeah, and then Memphis 2 years ago was 6 points per 100 possessions worse with him on defense as well too. And so you're like, all right, well, there's something to it. And now I asked the Locked On Suns guys, who do you think is going to start? They said it's going to be Tyus Jones, Booker, Beal, Durant, and Nurkic. Whew. That lineup is going to be insane offensively. They were already 123 points per 100 possessions, insane offense. But can that unit defend at all?
Yeah, the Suns are going to be my wild card team because I've settled on them being comfortably I would say that the Thunder, Mavs, Nuggets, Timberwolves, most people seem to agree are in kind of a tier by themselves currently in the West based off what we know. I would say the Suns, to me, are comfortably the next team that I would put. And yeah, just is their defense. I mean, the fact that they were top 12 defense last year is shocking. Like that,
it's kind of wild.
I saw that recently. Was just like, what? Like that doesn't even add up to me. But you know, are they a playoff team? Can they defend in a 7-game series well enough? That question was answered last year, and they didn't fix it. So like the answer to the question is no.
The Timberwolves were not like the best offense. Like that's one of my questions for the Timberwolves here coming up in a little bit. But the Timberwolves. So the Suns in the regular season had 115.8 defensive rating when the big three was on. So the Beal, Booker, Durant. Okay, 115.8 is like a little below average. It's not awful, but not great either. It was awful a couple years ago, but it's not now. Their defense against the Timberwolves was 128.3. Like against the Timberwolves offense that was not one of the best in the NBA. That was shocking to see them try and defend that team.
Yeah, and then again, it's like answer. Well, what did they do to fix their defense?
Yeah, they went the opposite way.
Yeah, I know.
They went the opposite of that. And so we'll see what happens with that team. But yeah, I agree with you that I think they're kind of in a tier in their own in the West. And they've got a lot of big questions. And I asked the Locked On Suns guys what's their biggest question, and they said, can the big three work together effectively for an extended playoff run?
We'll see. I mean, maybe the Timberwolves were just a brutal matchup for them, but you think about the matchups in the West, and it's like, how could they stop Jokic? Well, maybe that's not fair because nobody can stop Jokic. All right, how do they stop the Mavs?
Mavs pick and roll.
Oh, okay, nobody can stop the Mavs pick and roll. Okay, how do they stop Anthony Edwards? Oh, well, do this. Okay, well, they didn't do it last year.
They were also terrible defending isolations last year too. And so, how do you defend the Thunder when all they do is isolate too? It's like, okay,
because I mean, Tyus or Monte Morris, Beal, Booker. That's one of those guys. And then a Kogi or oh god, I'm blanking on the guys they drafted.
Ryan Dunn.
Ryan Dunn. Yeah, I mean they love his defensive upside, but
well, I mean it's Royce O'Neal is maybe the only positive defensive player on their team. Booker, maybe you could talk me into Booker and Durant being
Kogi's a good defender.
Players. Okay, I'll go. Oh, Kogi, I forgot to write him down. You're right.
Kogi's a good defensive player, but Durant's a good defensive player too.
You're like, okay,
but he's not guarding one-on-one.
No, like a 36-year-old Durant is one of your positive defensive players. It's tough. Yeah. It's tough. So Suns definitely another team. Let us know in the comment section on YouTube and on Spotify. What's your biggest question for one of the other Mavs rivals? Let us know what you think about that. Coming up, the Denver Nuggets. They've got some big questions around them, but I've got one specifically that is the absolute one they have to answer this season. We'll talk about that coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp will help you if you've got stuff that you need to talk about, you need to work through, you need to think about, and stuff that you're like, all right, I'm just going to avoid that. I'll put it to the side, put it in a little box in the side of my mind, and I don't have to worry about it. Well, sometimes you need to take some time and just face it and just look at it and say, all right, I've got to figure this out or else it's going to be stuck there in the back of my mind all the time. And it depends on what it is for every single person. Everything's different. What's big to you may not be big to somebody else, and what's big to somebody else may not be big to you. But that thing is big to you. You need to talk about it. You need to work through it. And you need to help yourself reconnect with, being healthy, mentally, all that kind of stuff. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. I've used BetterHelp before. I enjoyed it because all I had to do was fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. Appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show. If you're watching on YouTube or you would like to watch on YouTube, Tuesday night, 9 p.m., live show, me and Slightly Biased. We're breaking down the Mavs. We want to do some lives throughout the summer, so we'll start with this one. Be there. You'll want to be there for this, and I'm excited about our first live. We'll be answering your questions. We'll be talking all things Mavs, me and Slightly Biased. He's one of the great live streamers that exists, and so to go live on Locked On Mavs, I appreciate the time.
This is right up my alley.
up his alley as well is talking about the other teams in the West. That's what we're doing. We're asking big questions about them. Talked about the Thunder. We each picked the Suns as our wild card team. And now let's go to the Denver Nuggets. My question about the Denver Nuggets is kind of obvious. It's the question about them every year. How do they survive without Jokic on the court?
Yeah. I mean, that's and now with Bruce Brown and the KCP being gone, although they run their starting five together collectively more than any other team in the NBA by a comfortable margin. Yeah. You're really banking on some of these young dudes, and you're really, I guess you're not technically banking on it because he's only making the minimum, but you're really hoping that Russell Westbrook finally is somebody who you're like, all right, here's the keys to the offense when Jokic is off the court.
Yikes.
Go crazy. Like that's that. And I find it funny because people are like, he doesn't fit well next to Jokic. I need you guys to understand Russ and Jokic, unless injury happens, will probably very rarely be on the court together. I can't imagine it. Like I said earlier, they run so many all bench lineups that it's actually crazy. So
they'll also figure it out, I think. Yeah,
I mean, Jokic plays well with anybody, so we know that. But I feel like the on-off splits with Jokic are just the craziest thing, and it's been this way his whole career. Part of it's because he's so good, but part of it's because the Nuggets bench has just been in constant flux the entire time.
Yeah, did we talk about the potential MVP for Luka this season? You're like, well, if you're looking at the on-off splits, it's the only thing. It's going to get worse because I think the Mavs bench got better and the Nuggets bench got worse. I mean, I asked the Locked On Nuggets guys about this, and Swipa responded and said his big question is, can Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, and Julian Strawther be trusted to play important playoff minutes, and can they stabilize the bench in non-Jokic minutes? And I was like, that's a big question for those guys. Christian Brown, it makes sense. He's put into the starting lineup. I think that lineup will be fine. I think he'll fill in for KCP pretty well. But
third year, and he's pretty good. So there's a world where he's ready to go.
But then it's like, all right, Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, like Zeke Naji, Dario Saric, Russell Westbrook.
Saric is more interesting to me than Naj. Naji's done.
Yeah,
he stinks.
Vlatko, our boy Chanchar. Like, I mean, this is their bench that we're talking about. It's all unknowns. I mean, even Russell Westbrook, they're all just like a question mark. Like maybe Saric is the only non-question mark on that list.
Yeah, the Saric pickup was a good one. I think that's like an under the radar pickup that will make a lot of sense as the season goes along. But my biggest question for them, and it makes everything else a moot point that we just talked about.
Oh no!
If Jamal Murray is what, if Jamal Murray is trending a direction that it kind of feels like he was trending for a little bit, then nothing else matters at all. Because if they want to win, it has to be Jamal Murray being a top 20-ish player in the league again. Because Jokic can only do so much. And I go back to, what year was that? 2022 when Jamal Murray had the torn ACL or whatever. And
Jokic was playing with Facu Campazzo and Austin Rivers
on the court. It was just disgusting. Oh yeah, Austin Rivers, and he tried his hardest, but I think they swept or lost in 5 to the Warriors. Obviously, that's if Jamal Murray was out, but man, they really need him to be good and back at the level he was when they won a championship. If they want to win at a championship level, like they're going to be a good regular season team always, as long as Jokic is healthy. They'll be in the playoffs. If they want to win a championship in a Western Conference that feels loaded, Jamal Murray's gotta be Jamal Murray.
You've been on this Jamal Murray like doubt for a little while. Is it the Olympics thing? Did you see something in the playoffs? His numbers were down in the playoffs last season.
I thought he was okay against the Lakers, although he didn't look physically right, and he was dealing with a calf injury.
He also always kills the Lakers.
He always kills. That's true. He always kills the Lakers. So that's like a 10+ attribute boost for him. So that doesn't really count. And then the Timberwolves,
GM Slightly is coming out.
Yeah, that's right. They had the 10 attribute boost. They knew that they were going to be okay. But then he just didn't look physically right against the Timberwolves. Didn't have a great series. And then, I mean, yeah, he looked awful. And it's just a taste in your mouth because the last we saw him, knowing he was dealing with an injury, he looked horrible in that in the Olympics. Physically, you miss shots, whatever. Like there's a small sample, 4 games, whatever it is in the Olympics. You get cold from 3, then your numbers just look terrible. But physically, he looked bad. So that would be my concern.
Yeah, Jason Tatum missed a bunch of jump shots. No one's saying Jason Tatum looked terrible in the Olympics.
Right.
We're concerned about Jason Tatum. It's different with Jamal Murray in that the way that he looked. Yeah, against the Timberwolves, he averaged just under 18.5 points a game, 4 assists. He shot 40% from the field, 33% from 3. Only got to the free throw line 1.7 times a game in the 7 games. Played 37.5 minutes. I mean, his numbers were just not what you would think a number 2 on a potential title team is. And so, yeah, I'm concerned about him. They just signed him to that big deal. I just saw Adam Mares from Locked On Nuggets like stake his flag in the ground and be like, Jamal Murray's gonna have a career year. All right,
okay.
I think he needs to, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, it could. I mean, it's not like he's 35 years old. Like he's still in his 20s. So like,
what, gonna be 27 at the start of the season?
Yeah, I mean, 27 years old. So it's not even like he's old. Like he should be entering or at his prime. I'm just worried that calf injuries and stuff are weird, man. Like,
yeah.
They just are. So I'm not thinking that it's my biggest question for them, but it's not something that I would predict necessarily, if that makes sense.
And his season kind of depends on, my big question was like, how do they survive the non-Jokic minutes? Like he's supposed to carry them in a way, right? Like you stagger those guys, and it maybe as much as it is Westbrook getting that time, I bet Jamal Murray will play with Westbrook because he can play off ball and do all that. Yeah. And so you'd think that Murray would be the one to carry them in the non-Jokic minutes, but I don't know. We'll see. It all kind of comes back to that, and it depends on. It's going to be funny going into the playoffs, and like non-Jokic minutes are going to be like minus 15 every game, and that's how they lose every playoff game. It's like they just can't deal with Jokic sitting at all.
Yeah, I mean that's how they've built their roster forever. I mean, it is kind of crazy.
Well, and now we've heard the rumblings of the front office and the coaching staff not agreeing, and. Like,
that's another thing is I'm a big vibes guy, and the vibes don't feel very good entering the season right now.
You're a big vibes guy?
Yeah, I'm a huge and I'm gonna tell you something. It's like it's a thing. Like very rarely do I feel like vibes are terrible, and then teams like overcome terrible vibes. It's the stupidest thing, but
well, it's like so I'm trying to think of like past examples. The 2004 Lakers had terrible vibes, and they went to the finals, but then they lost in the finals against a team that. Maybe if Karl Malone had been healthy, but yeah, like I'm trying to think about a team with bad vibes that was good.
The Last Dance Bulls.
Yeah, there you
bad
go.
Bad vibes. But I mean, that's Jordan, so that doesn't count.
Yeah.
The Russell Westbrook Lakers, terrible vibes, and they were terrible.
The 2023 Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah.
The vibes. Were not that
great. Vibes weren't good.
But the vibes weren't great because of the results, I think. I think the results came and then the vibes got bad. Coming up, we got one more team in the West, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's talk about their biggest question. And mine doesn't have to do with Rudy Gobert. It actually doesn't.
Mine doesn't either. I hate the Gobert stuff.
I'll tell you what it is coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode of Locked On Dallas Mavericks is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds and things that you can use to get in on the action. You've heard us talk about FanDuel a lot. It's America's #1 sportsbook. We've talked about this a couple weeks. If you listen to the show, we've got something different for you. Now through September 22nd, still got time. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket. Were you sitting there on Sunday and thinking, man, I would really love to watch this game, but you just couldn't? This is how you do it. Put $5 on FanDuel and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game that you want. All you need is a Google account, a current form of payment. You can cancel anytime. YouTube TV's thing where you can put 4 games on at the same time, and then you just like scroll to which one you want, or you put the cursor on it, and that's the audio that it plays. Amazing. You gotta love that. Visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook and see what else they have. All kinds of NFL odds running all the time, NBA futures as well. Go check out FanDuel, see what they have available at FanDuel.com.
My first shot, my first play.
All right, Slightly, let's get into the last question we have for the Mavs rivals in the West, the Minnesota Timberwolves. My question about the Timberwolves is not the same question that Derek Lively had recently on Theo Pinson's podcast, where he was asking why was Rudy Gobert even out there on the final play. That one's fine with me. I'm not worried about that one. I understand. My question is about their offense. We kind of talked about and touched on it a little bit earlier. My question is, can Mike Conley hold up?
That's a good one.
That's my question for them, because I think a lot hinges on him. He's going to be 37 to start the season. And when he was on the court last year, they were a +6. And when he was off, their offense went down to like 111. And without Anthony Edwards, their offense went down to 111. And they need somebody else to run offense. And I asked Ben Beacon of Locked On Timberwolves about this, and this was his one too. He said, how will things run without Conley? Basically, who's the backup point guard? A lot is going to be asked of a 19-year-old Rob Dillingham from the Timberwolves.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one. And I think what ties into that as well is do we see an Anthony Edwards playmaking leap? Because it has to come if he wants to be in the conversations that, we want to put him in, because he is a really good player. He's incredibly exciting, all of this. If he wants to be in those next level MVP top 5 conversations, there has to be a playmaking leap that comes with it. I think that's his next logical step. I also, my question was offense related too. And is Jaden McDaniels going to look more like the guy that we've been told that he could be?
Yes.
Or is this just a hypothetical pipe dream that we're being told about forever?
Yeah, because when the Mavs were preparing to take on the Timberwolves, I was like, all right, the offense. You got Cat, who's going to space the floor. You got Ant, who's going to be doing stuff. Conley is adding a lot to them. And then you've got Jaden McDaniels, but they never really had to deal with the Jaden McDaniels, right? Like, it never felt like he had one of those moments.
We got Jaden McDaniels.
It's like, okay.
They got Luka Doncic. We got Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah, he averaged 12 points, but he took 3.5 threes a game, shot 43% from three. Like, he made some threes in that series, but
no, he actually had some decent moments against the Mavs. Jaden McDaniels did. But let's not forget, it's not like he signed a $15 million contract. They paid him a lot of money, with the idea being that, Jaden McDaniels, this great defender, which he is. People might point to, oh, well, Luka did X, Y, and Z against them. Luka does X, Y, and Z against everyone. It does not matter. But with the whole idea behind paying them that much money behind this forward wing tandem between him and Anthony Edwards was that he will take this big leap offensively. Yeah. And there's flashes here and there, but then there are flashes where it doesn't look like somebody who will ever develop into a consistent, reliable offensive player.
Yeah. Yeah, what's his go-to move? What's his thing that he does? Is he just going to be a 3-and-D wing and kind of not even a 3 because his shot has been up and down and shaky? He also has a pretty even assist to turnover ratio, which is not a great thing for a wing like that in his spot. But can he take another step forward? Which goes to the Conley thing too, is basically where can they find other offensive creation outside of Anthony Edwards? And can Anthony Edwards, do everything that they need? Can he take that next step forward? Because they really are dependent on him to do a lot. Yeah,
I know. I mean, they're an interesting team. I feel like everyone pencils them in for keep moving up. I don't know. I could see a world in this episode, just by nature of what we're doing, is just if any opposing fans, any of these teams fans are watching, they have unlimited ammo because we've just, by nature of what we're doing, are just going in on each and every team.
Listen, if you're a fan of another team and listen to this, and you don't have the same questions about your team, you don't really I literally went to every Locked On host and asked them what their questions are and asked the same questions. So. Okay. You guys are asking
asking fans to be rational. It's different when it doesn't come from your fan base. It's like Big Brother.
Go through every podcast I've done this summer. I've asked all the questions about the Mavs. There's not a question I haven't asked.
Also, if you're an opposing team's fan and it's September 9th and you're lurking here, I mean, man.
There was
kudos.
The other day.
You are sicko.
The other day I was sitting in the premiere of our YouTube video, and in the chat was a Celtics fan that was just bombing away, and I was like, ugh. And then he made it not about basketball, and there was some racial thing, so I muted him. And then he comes back with a different account with a similar name in it, and I was all right. So
I want to say something.
Put that one in timeout, and I was like, if he has a third one, I'm just gonna let him go. I was like, you earned it at that point.
Yeah, the Celtics fans and then it turning weirdly racial. Classic.
It was a weird. I didn't say racial. It was not about basketball, but
no, you said weirdly racial.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna say you were wrong.
No, but
the Timberwolves went from a 42-40 team, barely above 500, and then went to a 56-26 team last season. It took
that's crazy. They were 42-40.
Yes, took a huge leap. They also had some pretty good health too. Cat missed 20 games. But Naz Reid played 81, Ant played 79, Jaden McDaniels played 72, Gobert played 76, Conley played 76. I mean, they had Gilgeous-Alexander Walker played 82, Kyle Anderson played 79. I mean, they had a lot of health last year too. So the same thing with the Thunder. We could say for the Timberwolves about health.
Yeah, and I get that that's a stupid thing to say because you could say it about any team in the league, and it is true. But I feel like it's important to say when a team performs at the level the Timberwolves did, and they were awesome last year. Like I'm really not trying to take anything away from them. They're a really good basketball team. But when you look at teams like them, the Thunder, the Kings from 2 years ago, and you go and you look at how healthy they were, the reality is like usually teams deal with some type of substantial injury over the course of the season. I mean, knock on glass, you never want to do it.
Yeah.
But Cat did miss a good chunk of time.
20 games.
So
Same as Kyrie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but think about how long that stretch felt. When you look at it on the basketball reference page, it's like, 20 games. Like, but think about the Kyrie minutes that were missed when he was gone. I was like, oh my God, Kyrie Irving's been out for 3 years. Like, that's what it feels like during the heat of the moment.
Felt like a lot. It did feel like a lot.
Yeah, it feels like a really long time. So I get it. I mean, it's a cop-out thing, but it is a lot of the times it's the healthiest teams.
If you're angry about the valid question we asked about your team, comment below.
What? I was gonna audible into another.
You got one.
Into another.
You want to do one more?
Well, because you
gotta say
there's something about this.
You gotta say. Well, you gotta say
team.
you gotta say the thing.
One more thing. Something about this team. I don't know what it is. I don't know
Pelicans?
if it's because
the Lakers. Are you gonna go Lakers?
My love for this player has grown over time. You and I worked on something recently where we're texting each other back and forth. We're like, dude, this guy's just unbelievable.
Dude, Kevin Love.
Yeah. God, man. Matthew Dellavedova.
Yeah.
Unreal. What he's been doing.
Went to the hospital, man. Love of the game.
That is crazy about the 2015 series that they were like, it was the beginning of Steph Curry. We weren't fully aware of what we were seeing. I know that anyone listening to this is like, what
so
are they talking about right now?
We were working on a different project for a different company on a video project.
And I'm talking about LeBron, obviously. Yeah. So we're talking about the 2015 finals, and they're on the broadcast like, Matthew Dellavedova was in the hospital last night dealing with cramps. Like he was genuinely had to go to the hospital because he was chasing around Steph Curry so much.
2015 finals, he at the end of the series, he started with Dellavedova, Tristan Thompson, Mozgov, LeBron, and Shumpert. Like that is
Tristan Thompson and Mozgov, and they're just standing at the elbows. It's like the most disgusting thing.
It was such a gross team to watch.
But anyways, Lakers, can AD and LeBron be healthy again? And if so, if they can be, they're not going to be slouches. They're really not. I'm telling you. I'm telling you right now.
You're zigging while everyone else is zagging on the Lakers.
Yeah, because I don't know. I like them more than the Kings. I'm just gonna be honest. I like their ceiling more than the Kings. How about that?
I'm there with you on that.
I like their ceiling more than the Pelicans. You want to know why? I'm not discussing the hypothetical Pelicans series ever again. Ceiling ever again. Like how many chances do you get to reach your ceiling before we dramatically lower the ceiling?
You want to talk about health with them too, with Zion.
Yeah, and Zion was like for him pretty healthy last year.
Didn't he play 70 games?
Yeah, I mean, the question with the Pelicans is who is playing center? Is Brandon
Zion.
Ingram going to play on their team? And if he is that going to be a distraction? And 2, 3, 4, I don't know where we're at. I'm not a DeJounte Murray guy at all. I'm not in the slightest.
And so we'll see what
that's actually not. That's a statement. That wasn't really a question.
I was going to say, you didn't ask me a question.
Question number 4, I don't like DeJounte Murray.
Question number 1, how dare you?
Yeah, for real, DeJounte.
There you go. Let us know in the comment section what you think about either of these teams, what your biggest questions are for any of these teams. And check back with us on Tuesday. If you're listening, watching this on Tuesday, or tonight, if you're listening or watching this, we'll be live on Locked On Mavs YouTube channel. So come join us. It'll be fun. We'll have some special guests, all that kind of stuff. Big announcement. Guys, thanks for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.
Happy birthday, HVL.